Very good morning to everybody. I'd like to thank the panelists for joining us. This morning we've heard a series of speeches. Some of them talked about trust. Hussain talked about character, and he talked about competency, and you know, those are some of the words that we've heard this morning. If we put our minds, before I open up for questions, let's just think about what businesses are set up to do. We all, in some way, are connected with business enterprises, and we all appreciate that the purpose of business, as spelled out by Shabazedi, who quoted Friedman, was that businesses are essentially set up to provide goods and services, and the motive behind the provision of goods and services is to maximize profits and to maximize shareholder wealth. Everything else is subordinate to that particular aim. I think if I sum up Friedman and our classic understanding of businesses, that's where it comes from. But increasingly, we're now beginning to question, as Dr. Ishrat said, the purpose of businesses. Leading business people are sitting down and saying, what is our purpose? Is it simply, to maximize shareholder wealth and profits? And therefore, that's good behavior in an ethical sense. That's good, and people benefit from that. And we're not doing any harm if we continue down that path. And I think there's a strong sense now, and he put a caveat at the end of that, because he said that perhaps businessmen are now saying, well, we may be doing harm, whether that be harm to society or to customers. We may be harming customers, we may be harming Mother Nature, we may be harming future generations, and therefore, what we thought was good behavior is actually now considered to be not so good anymore. And a lot of that is really due to our short-term decision making. We're looking at financial results. We've got the regulator here. We're looking at quarterly results. We're looking at 6-monthly performances. We're looking at annual performances, and we're not looking beyond that. And the reason why we're not looking beyond that is because we're not incentivized to look beyond that. Our remunerations, our bonuses, the value of our shares are locked into that short-term vision. So the only question is for all of you, do you think currently the way we are doing business as usual is actually unethical? Is our approach to business as usual unethical? And I won't start in any particular order. I'll just go from my right all the way down. And so Aamir, you start us off and give us an opening message.
Okay, thank you. Interesting, thought-provoking question. My immediate response is that businesses are perhaps not unethical, but there is a room of opportunity to be more ethical. So rather than putting it as an either-or kind of a thing, I think what is happening, you mentioned business as usual. I think business as usual is also evolving. Our consciousness, our consciousness as business leaders is changing. Previously, we thought less about the environment, about all the stakeholders. We thought more about the shareholders, but perhaps less about all the stakeholders. And I think now we are broadening the canvas of who all do we need to appeal to. And I think that there is a greater knowledge, education, and awareness on that particular aspect. With the passage of time and the advent of technology, and obviously we are a technology company, I think the challenges in future are going to be different from the challenges today. And while they may all be under the broader umbrella of ethics, but what is right and wrong will also evolve with the passage of time and with the increase of our awareness of certain issues. So, summing up, because I want to also hear from some of my other colleagues on this panel, I think the penny has dropped. Company leaders are becoming more and more aware of what they're selling, how they're selling, honest marketing practices, ensuring there is transparency, and as Dr. Yousuf mentioned, when he talks about the triple bottom line, it's not only the profit, it's the people, and it's the planet. And you can put all the stakeholders in those two categories, which is people and the planet. So a lot of room to do, but I don't think you can't just say that all businesses are unethical.
On your closing message on whether you think business as usual is not good enough.
I think the important thing is to understand when we talk business, are we talking about what type of business? Are we talking about a sole proprietorship? Are we talking about a partnership? Are we talking about a company that is limited and incorporated under the Company Act? Because the person's behavior in your business will depend largely on the form of business that you're in. Now, because we are talking or have been talking throughout about the corporate sector, the moment you incorporate a company, you are declaring to, and a company in this day and age is a limited liability company, you are declaring to the world at large that the amount of liability that is limited to the amount of capital that we put in by the shareholders. So a company to survive in its business takes the capital of the shareholders, and the shareholders cannot obviously run the business themselves, so they appoint a board of directors. Now the board of directors are really charged with managing the business, which they cannot do themselves, they appoint a chief executive. So essentially, there is a responsibility that goes from the shareholders to the board to the chief executive, who in turn has management. And there is an accountability that goes back from the management to the board to the shareholders. So this concept of maximization of profit arises purely if you take a look at financial accounts being only a period declaration of results. So if you look year to year, then people think only about terms of profit. But the objective of a business, of a company is declared in what its vision is, its mission is, and what its values are. Hence, if you look in terms of sustaining a limited company, you are engaging in that company different stakeholders other than shareholders, and taking responsibility as regards the other stakeholders are concerned becomes very, very important. So, in a nutshell, I would say that if you are incorporated as a company, you cannot think merely of the shareholder itself. If you try and distribute your profit for CSR purpose, thinking that you've done your obligation to the society, the shareholder could object that why are you using my shareholder money to make payments into charity. Hence, you have to have a business purpose for engaging in all aspects of your society, all aspects of your environment, and eventually, if you wish to sustain yourself, you've got to carry everyone along.
Jahanara,
yes, I would just like to sort of link your question to the broader theme of today's event, which is ethics. So what I would say is now, I am working for a business which is a family business, which was set up by my grandfather long time ago in the 70s. Where still it was maybe the concept of shareholder wealth maximization had existed, but the vision that the founder had even then was it was linked to ethics. So ever since the 70s, the focus of the group where I'm working is not just maximizing shareholder wealth, because the shareholder is generally affecting the family. It was also always linked to ethics. For example, the foundation was set up by the name of Abdul Khan that whatever profits that each company within the group, we have 9 different companies, generates, a certain amount of it has to go to Abdul Khan, which educates the children of the labor which is actually working in our factories. So the stakeholder inclusive approach within the group that I work for, existed a long time ago, ever since the group was founded. Shareholders make part of the stakeholders. We have the environment, like you said, we have the customers, employees. They are all part of a broader stakeholder approach. And I was happy to see once when the company's Ordinance 54 was changed to the Companies Act 2017, the concept of stakeholders was introduced within the Act as well. So now the directors are no longer just responsible for shareholder maximization. The concept of stakeholder approach has formed part of the Companies Act. Another thing which you touched upon was remuneration and to short-term performance of the companies. Actually, now the Code of Corporate Governance for listed companies got revised maybe a week or so ago, and I was actually sort of sad to see that previously in the previous code they had actually linked directors' remuneration to their performance as well. Performance evaluation of directors was linked to remuneration in the previous code, but the one that has just now come out, actually Sajjad has now left, but I was surprised to see that element has been taken out. So, like Fuad mentioned here, it is the board of directors which effectively, sort of govern the company. So, I believe that their performance, should be linked with remuneration. This is how.
Thank you, Jahanara. So let me just recap before you give your comments. We've said that companies like Jazz, for example, are now much more aware of what and why of their purpose. Fuad has brought in, the concept of the stakeholder as highly relevant. So it's not just a shareholder. We've now got this term stakeholder. Who are stakeholders? Well, employees, customers, regulators, anybody in some way connected with that organization. And we've also now understood that the board of directors is the leadership, sort of governing part of the business that's where the power lies in order to measure and monitor performance. So your opening message, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to add to the comments our colleague made on this. I think, yes, this is not the time to take the business as usual. And I would also not say that's unethical that if the business is as usual, but that's the high time, today as of now. There is a requirement of a risk assessment for each component of the production factors of the economy and the organizations. That could be, say, labor. So I'll have to reassess whether the labor we are paying are they paid properly. Is there any the organization? Is there any issues with the utilization of the child labor? Or if I'm talking about the capital, is the capital coming in to the company in any form need to be reassessed, whether it has any links with some trade numbers coming in, or similarly, there must be some assessment made with your business partners. So you'll have to assess to whom you're selling your products, to whom you're providing your services, and then again, we're talking about professional behaviors, professional competencies, building in a culture of ethics in all processes. So and that reassessment should be a continuous process, and enhance the processes and practice those, which is very much important here, and practice those practices, those ethics, policies, and procedures.
Thank you. Usman, your opening message?
I think we've made a number of references to building feedback and its idea of shareholder wealth maximization. Now, if you go back and read his actual works, and some of them are easily available, So he explained his thesis in a short article that was published in 1971. And the reason I raise this is because he himself qualified the idea of shareholder wealth maximization subject to law and ethical custom. This is stated very, very clearly over there. I think it was some of the other academics that followed him that just focused on shareholder wealth maximization and that bit on subject to law and ethical custom, which is there actually in the original works, went missing. And when we talk about ethical custom, I think as Fuad Hashimi put it, so today's ethical custom really is what we call ESG. It is about taking into consideration environmental, social, and governance issues, both by the companies and the investors. And I think the business, as long as the business as usual is based on integration of the ESG consideration in what we do, I think is perfectly ethical. And it is also possible that people are doing much on ESG issues. And Sajjad also gave an example of a company actually advertising that being voted as one of the best employers. So people are kind of doing those things in Pakistan as well publicly. But they may not necessarily be using the same nomenclature. You know, everybody doesn't talk about ESG or at least in the same way. So I think there is quite a bit of ethics inherent in business as usual depending on how the leadership is actually conducted.
Yusuf, your opening comments and, especially Ignite, which is providing funding to startups, are you seeding in those new business young men and women an idea that, you can't just concentrate on the classic maximization of profit, that you have to go beyond that?
Well, before I answer that, I'd like your initial question that was kind of intriguing. Was business unethical before and has become ethical now? Was that so?
Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, I think that there have always been ethics. There have always been good businesses. Okay? So notions of trust or notions of treating employees fairly, notions of completing business obligations have always been there, I think, in some companies. So, but now, because of globalization, movements, labor, capital, trade, global compliance is coming in. Many, for example, textile mills have to be ISO 9000 certified, treat employees in a certain way. Then there's social media, public pressure. The CEO of United Airlines, for example, needs to tweet if something is a passenger incident. But I think ethical businesses have always been ethical, but some who may be unethical are now facing increasing pressure. Before I go into Ignite, I just want to give an example that it's not necessary that regulatory agencies or external compliance makes you ethical. I think all great companies are built on culture and ethics. For example, Walt Disney, I think 80 years ago, said that we will only stay in family business. They gave up a lot of opportunities. They said we will only give family entertainment. Or Henry Ford said that democratization of the automobile, whatever, black key Ford in every house, right? So imagine when employees come to work, they have a core purpose, a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership. Coming to Ignite, our mission is solving the most meaningful problems in Pakistan with technology. And in the area of water preservation, in terms of feeding the hungry, and in terms of jobs for the bottom of the pyramid, in terms of climate preservation, we've funded a bunch of projects. And I think that our employees, and I want to focus on the human capital part first, feel a sense of purpose in coming. And when they see achievements, they see rollouts, they see, I was just talking with President Stark earlier today that Beacon House invested $2 million in one of our STEM science, technology, engineering, math companies, which is now going to scale it from 100,000 to about 1 million students, right? So these are the things now coming, particularly to ethics. We are very strong about ethics, cultural values when it comes to diversity. For example, I'll just give you an example of when if you go on a website, ignite.org.pk, the first value you see is no titles, right? No titles, no CEO, no intern. It's just great ideas that you respect, glass walls, open doors. So that kind of transparency and open communication resolves a lot of things. If somebody feels they're being treated unfairly, walk in and discuss, present it, and there can be a discussion. So so we enforce this spend more time. Similarly, diversity is important for us because innovation or coming up with new products and services, new tech to solve problems needs different kinds of thinking. So in one of our flagship programs, DGCO.pk, for example, we use online platforms, AI-powered online platforms to enroll 532,000 trainees in 1 year, which I think is probably quicker than Facebook or Twitter in terms of first-year expansion. But in our curriculum, and this trains people in doing freelancing, earning dollars from overseas. We are very careful about saying, do not lie, you will be found out. If you make a commitment that you deliver something at 5 p.m. on Thursday, make it 4 p.m., 55 minutes, but don't make it 5:01 p.m. So we grill them, and you got to pay your taxes. You got to report your earnings. We have that training component as well. And so these things, we build these what we call soft skills into the program, in addition to hard skills.
Thank you, Yusuf. Let's just open it up a little bit more, because one of the things I put down, which I must ask you all about, is around supply chains. All of you, in some way or another, rely upon contracting out businesses. Whether you're in manufacturing, whether you're in jazz, there are many organizations involved in your supply chain. And those supply chain vendors, most often are not subject to scrutiny as they are, by a large organization. How do you ensure within your supply chains that there is not only legitimate behavior, but also ethical behavior? You're at the top of the supply chain. How are you ensuring that down there? I mean, for you, Aamir, it could be quite complex because if you go up and down your supply chain in terms of the users as well, there's all sorts of, we just mentioned Facebook and Twitter. The social impact of Facebook and Twitter resulted in racism, bullying, harassment. These are all social consequences of technology, not just mobile technology, but a lot of things going on. So how do you factor all this in here? And talk about supply chain as well for a second.
Okay, let's take a look at supply chain. We call them vendor business partner relationships. So we've got like many big organizations, a very robust set of governance and how we onboard vendors or members of our supply chain. So we have to conform. We start off with a training program on what is acceptable, not acceptable. I think at some stage it becomes almost impossible to really go deep down within the organization of the entire supply chain to the ethical components. However, you can get them educated about what are the minimum requirements. And while I agree with Yusuf that not everything can be deferred, there is a role and relevance of governance and regulation to make sure that companies are answerable for their actions. So we are answerable for the actions of our entire supply chain. If something goes wrong, if there is child labor, I remember that in our previous organization there was a big crisis in Bangladesh, and there was a miner who was employed in a power construction company. Unfortunately, the fidelity happened, and the previous organization was taken to task over this thing. So, whether it is complying with minimum wages, whether it's complying with underage, all of these things have to get documented, and the vendor has to commit that they are not going to breach that. That's number one. When it comes to social media, a lot of our customers sometimes even complain about how their call was received or not appropriately handled, and those are handled by outsourced companies. Now, we don't run them directly, but they are in the digital way, in the digital world, part of our supply chain. So we take action on them, but that has to be done either through sporadic checks and balances or whenever there is an event. And then the remedy for that thing is not to fix that particular thing, but to understand why did it happen to begin with. So a problem that you solve only once is not really a good problem. You have to go down to the underlying reasons on how the problem surfaced. And in many cases, you have to go back and reinforce education.
Jahanara, let me come to you because manufacturing, obviously in manufacturing and supply chains, we know in a lot of manufacturing organizations, generally speaking, in some way there will be human rights issues, child labor, for example, and those things, which may reflect badly in terms of the reputational impact on who's on top of the supply chain, because they have all the right mechanisms in place, to ensure that their reputations are preserved. But whilst signing off on documents and contracts and covenants is fine, but ethics is more than that. It's about, if you have knowledge of things, you need to act. So how do you ensure that level of, mining into supply chain goes on, and you're able to impart that ethical mindset to the supply chain?
Yeah. So we have various companies now. Some in one of the companies we are dealing with a global brand, which is Isuzu. So fairly they have good governance there. But then we have a spinning mill as well, where we deal with the yarn market. So talking about ethics and the supply chain now, before most of our products used to go to unregistered, people who are unregistered with NPR. But now, ever since this SRO 1125 has been withdrawn, so we make sure that we've actually changed markets. Before, all of our yarn used to go to the Islamabad market, but if you see, it's about 90% of them are unregistered. So we make sure that we have moved markets. We have shifted our products to the Karachi market, where it costs us more to deliver, but the suppliers are registered. So this is one side of the ethics, even though this is not a global brand like an Isuzu, which will be fine, but this is global yarn market that we're talking about. But we make sure that ethics are, sort of to the extent possible that we comply with ethics there. Child labor, not that our mills don't employ people, children, they're actually people who have been with us for the past 30, 40 years, and then they bring in their children when they come of age, and then they become the laborers. But generally, in our country, what I feel is that child labor, we should not look at it as just in the context of child labor. There are families whose children, who actually need their children to bring in money to support their families. We have widows, who cannot go out and earn that much, so they ask mostly their sons and daughters to go out and work in these factories. So, in my view, we need to have a more open view about child labor in our country, keeping into the circumstances of our country. Instead of that child going out and begging, it's better that he is employed in a safe environment. This is my view of child labor.
So, that's a very interesting comment, because it means that we have to look at what's going on here through our own lenses and our own optics. But, in terms of that whole social equation and social capital that Dr. Yusuf talked about, and to quote him, that if the country is seen as not trustworthy, will it attract capital, will it attract investment? How are we going to, raise that level of trust, when there are these complexities in our society?
So, the response I will give will be related to the members of the Pakistan Business Council, to which the Center of Excellence is a part of. Just to clarify, the Pakistan Business Council is not a trade body or a chamber. So the members that have got together to put up this think tank essentially are looking at bringing about a quantum change in the contribution of the private sector to the growth of the economy. So the way that we identify what practices are in place is that we carry out baseline surveys of the different member companies to see if these members between them are contributing 12%, 82 members will contribute about 12% of the GDP of the country. They must be engaging in good practices. So in the survey of good practices, what we've come across in certain sectors where there are defined supply chains, is that the only methodology that is followed is to carry out the supply chain audit. And the supply chain audit effectively engages into all aspects of business and actually transfers to the supply chain the same values that are being practiced by the company. I think it's very fashionable to talk about child labor, but I agree with what Jahanara is saying. I think you need to understand the demographics of the country, you need to understand the culture of the country, you need to understand the culture of society. So it may be fashionable to blame Pakistani products simply because children are used in the making of footballs. But I totally agree with what Jahanara said, that there is a need with certain families based on the institution, the type of culture they come from, that it's not totally incorrect to say that child labor is bad. It may not be bad. Anything which happens out of the norm, if it gets abused, it becomes bad. So as long as there is no abuse that is taking place, I think it's a need of our society, particularly at a certain level. So the engagement of trust is actually left up to the manufacturer. So when the manufacturer deals with their supply as such, for example, if you are exporting goods, when they deal with the company that they export to, it's the level of trust and confidence that that particular manufacturer can bring. And it's through the processes like supply chain audits that this can be done. The other very simple way is to classify different people in the supply chain. So most organizations that we have surveyed have got class A supplier, class B supplier, class C. And depending upon the type and continuity of supply, they address these.
So in order for this discussion to have some sort of outcomes, I think it's important because what we're getting here is some statements regarding, okay, well, Pakistan's complexities have to be understood as well. So if there is foreign direct investment opportunities for us to attract from abroad, we ought to ensure that at the government level, one of the outcomes from here should be for us, in order to be aligned, that there should be some sort of messaging going out so that providers of foreign capital understand these complexities. You can't have a blanket, you can't be faced with a blanket foreign direct investor coming in and saying, well, I'm not going to invest in Pakistan because of these factors. You've got to come back with policies and messages on the unique complexities of Pakistan. I know Aamir is, but let's get your coming on it, because these are important issues.
If I may, this is why we're still, it's not a question of fashionable or non-fashionable. If we accept it, we encourage it. And the foreign investors will basically have many other choices and they'll go to another market. We're talking about ethics, and globally this is an issue. So just looking from a very pragmatic perspective, if they have a choice, they will choose to go to another market where this is not going to be an issue. And therefore we will be worse off. The same situation happened with Nike in Pakistan, and they were taken to task. We have 23, 24 million kids who are out of school. If we just try to hide behind this thing that culturally it's okay, and if we don't do it, we're going to starve, we will perhaps not make the requisite effort which is required as a country to take these kids out of the workforce and put them into schools. So I feel very passionately about this thing. I think we just can't hide behind certain cultural things because this is the way things have happened. As a progressive country, we've got to think about what is the country we want to live in and what are the cultural interventions that we have to make for us to go there. So that was what I wanted to say on child labor specifically.
Great, thanks, Ahmed. Let's talk a little bit about, the Audit Oversight Board and similar boards that came into being around the world came in not because companies were violating the law. Yeah? Certainly a lot of the companies like Enron and the banks that were involved in the 2008 financial crisis, I would say, they were carrying on business legitimately. But if you obey the law, it doesn't mean you're acting ethically. Yeah? So you could be violating a moral code or an ethical code rather than violating the law. So in the case of Enron, they had investments they were showing on corporate vehicles, which weren't giving a true picture, but they were keeping within international accounting standards. So what do we do here, Usman, in terms of allowing companies to remain within the law? And the reason they remain within the law is because accounting has become very complex. People don't understand it. Yeah? But what happened as a result of that, the social impact of the financial crisis meant that whilst they still showed healthy profits, healthy balance sheets, people lost jobs, people lost property. There was a huge social impact. There was a recession. We almost went into a depression, negative growth rates, just because people remained within the law, but the decisions they made were unethical.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think earlier Dr. Hussain also touched on it when he explained that there are certain things very questionable, but they are done not just by sales or businessmen, but together with highly qualified and I would say respected professionals as well, who actually guide you how to do certain questionable things while remaining within the limits of the law. And this is done everywhere, not just in Pakistan, on an everyday basis. I think over here, our actually challenge is even more basic. So yes, how an accounting standard is interpreted in a certain way has not just accounting implications, but has real economic implications and real social impacts. But I think our challenge is more in Pakistan with compliance with basic laws as well. I think we really want to, I can't say we have to focus on this or the other, but really have to kind of accept that we have very basic fundamental challenges with basic compliance, and we need to get these sorted. And Dr. Yousuf also gave some examples, and I don't want to repeat them. And the challenge, I think, the part of it which is most relevant for this audience is that, we are all professionals. It takes a lifetime to become a professional. Why is it okay for us within our professional associations to actually kind of condone some of these, people taking liberties while remaining within the law? I think so. The burden is actually on the professional associations and on the leadership to actually just make these calls that this is not on, and we need higher standard of ethical behavior.
So basically, we ought to encourage whistleblowing. We ought to ensure that whistleblowers are protected, and the codes and the regulations to spell out, really how whistleblowers should, bring information to light for the public good. Before I go back to you, Jahanara, you wanted to make a point.
I actually fully agree with you. One should have a whistleblowing policy, and the protection of the whistleblower is a must. I'm talking about personal experience. I know Fatima brothers and all these cases have actually, whistleblowers were the ones who brought things to the general public's knowledge. Even in our group, when something goes wrong, it's normally a whistleblower which actually alerts the sponsor directors. And we do have a whistleblowing policy, but the thing which is important is that one needs to identify that one person within the group of companies in whom people have that trust that if I confide in this person, they are not going to disclose my identity, and they are actually going to investigate the matter, and they have the moral courage to go out and actually deal with this matter. Because family business, brothers and sisters are involved. So I fully endorse the whistleblowing policy.
So whistleblowing is a way of reinforcing ethics, and there should be a sort of policy on how whistleblowers can communicate and with whom. Before I come back to the panel, just make sure that if you want to ask any questions, you go to slido.com, it should be up there on the screen, and then use the code GED19 in uppercase in order to lodge your questions for the panel. And I'll read those out as we go along. We're almost running out of time, but I just want to bring in a few more people, and if you want to make some closing remarks, please think about those. I think one of the great things you mentioned was, erasing these titles. We are fixated on C-suite. Yeah, we're fixated on hierarchy and egos and protocol. Yeah, is that encouraging unethical culture? Yeah, and if we do away with these titles, and is that going to help?
Yeah, but first of all, I think I need to read on Enron again, because I thought what they did was illegal, and Charles Lay and his CFO was jailed, and the company profession was transformed, and the audit function and consulting function were broken up, right? So, but insofar as, let's call it humility. Let's call it humility. Again, my point is ethics as an individual, and Dr. Yusuf stands at the end of the day, it is a human being, right? So, I think humility in a human being does drive ethics, that drives compassion and consideration of others, and it's always been there in some people and some companies and not in others, right? So yeah, I think that is fundamental. For example, I'll tell you that in this program, PK, we are partnered with several women business organizations because we are tracking gender involvement, which is right now at 26% across the country. We do that, for example, in our National Innovation Center in Quetta, we have more women founders now than male founders, right? So we track these things as well. And for DCS.PK, one of our partners is Pakistan Transgender Association. So when I talk about diversity, I think we really mean it.
So audits, let's talk about audit for a second. Again, many people here are from the finance sector, they're finance professionals. Auditors are called in annually to sign off on the financial health of companies. They are answerable. Even though they're hired by the company, they're effectively reporting to the shareholders only. Yeah? So, is it sufficient for us to continue in that manner, where auditors solely are reporting on financial capital and the truth and fairness around that whole financial piece? Is there now is the time right to expand audit so it reports to stakeholders, yeah, and it reports beyond just the financial health and the truth and honesty around that financial piece? Because surely, all the companies which I mentioned which collapsed had clean audit reports. Yeah, Enron had a clean audit report. Yeah, WorldCom had a clean audit report.
And Cyber as well, but that's why they were broken up.
Yeah. So these are companies which financially sound, yeah, but didn't survive, and they didn't survive because of the whole other thing we're talking about, because they neglected their social and relationships capital. They neglected other capitals that they're going to keep their eye on. So what's the responsibility around that?
Yes, a very interesting question in that. Yes, being an auditor, we are all the professionals, they've been hired to issue a report. And if you look at the opinion, it talks about material misstatements on the financial statements. So yes, they are only confined with the financial statements, the numbers, but at the same time, the audit procedures requires to see if there's any breaches, material breaches. Again, which material breaches of any enacted laws and other regulations, the compliances with the laws. But again, that's somehow restricted to the impact on material, quantitative impact on the financial statements. So yes, I think there must be a mechanism. Like there are investment companies, there are investment groups globally. They have defined their roles. They have inbuilt the regulations like ESGs before making any acquisitions, making any investments. They go for that and assess the impact of those ESGs, like on environment, on socials, and governance structure, to assess whether they are good for the acquisition or making investments, or similarly going as a business partnership. Yes, I think here, particularly in Pakistan as well as there are flags around locally and globally on the areas, on the same areas, and yes, it has a big concern for all the professional firms as well. If they might be good, or they might be good on the financial side, but there might be some risk associated with any ethical grounds. So it will bring up some reputation risk to all professional firms. So that's again, we are all cognizant of the fact as well. So for that, what we do is that there's a procedures for the risk assessment of the inherent risks. So that's being covered in inherent risks of that company. Overall the structure, the shareholders, the businesses, the reputation in the market. So that's how being catered for. But yes, there's a lot of room for improvement to look at the social impact, the ethical and environmental impact of that company, and then assess. Maybe there could be. Unfortunately, again, I'm just linking that to the previous questions. We lack here in, generally all over the universe, but particularly in Pakistan, that we are mostly restricted to the taking exercise of, say, for example, code of corporate governance. If I give you the example of code of corporate governance, there are built-in issues, regulations which talk about the environment, the impact on the environment, but that is very restrictive. It's just, and that exercise is done once in a year, and that too in the when the auditors say, okay, I'll have to issue a report. So these are the things, especially, particularly where for the public entities. So that's the thing we need to get for.
So I think what you're saying, is we leaders, corporate leaders, shouldn't restrict themselves solely to what codes and regulations are saying. They can go beyond that. So if the code of corporate governance is saying set up these subcommittees of the board, fine, that's a minimum. But if you want to set up another committee that looks at, human rights issues, that looks at environmental issues, leaders are free to do that. Yeah. So let me read some questions, and I don't know who they're aimed at, so whoever wants to answer them can put up their hands quickly. This is from Rashid Khan. Unethical conduct by a business often risks its market competitiveness. Yeah. How is ethics linked with long-term sustainable business success? So I think it means that, being ethical actually is costly. If you put a monetary value on being an ethical company, and bring that monetary value onto your balance sheet and your P&L, suddenly you find you may go into a loss. Yusuf?
So I think again, there are two, let's say, different kinds of companies. Ethical companies are now, like Dr. Hussain said, there's a transaction cost involved whenever there's a lack of trust, whether that's between two business people in Pakistan or a foreign investor wanting to invest there, for whom the risk premium goes up, right? So there may be a cost for ethical behavior, that we can discuss that, but certainly there's a cost for the overall society and the firm unethical behavior, number one. Number two, if we have these rent-seeking businesses which are not globally competitive, behind high tariff barriers, they are not pushed to compete, they are not made to run and learn and improve and innovate, particularly bring in new products, then that rent-seeking behavior will be costly. Because if you become ethical, you're not under invoicing, over invoicing, then yes, you will be competitively left behind. But the world that we are headed to, and I think the economy which is being created in Pakistan is global competitiveness and integration into the global supply chain. And for that, you have to comply with ethical standards, whether that is internal compliance, external compliance, or which we should all be aware of is obviously social media, where unethical behavior can, really hurt you as well.
Actually, is the cost of policing social media, policing Facebook and Twitter in a Pakistan context? If companies had to bring that onto the balance sheet, surely why would they bring that onto the balance? Why should they monetize that and police that?
No, all I'm saying is that today, as we know, if a company or let's say, politician or whoever, policeman, does anything illegal or unethical, it goes viral, right? So the point is that if we indulge increasingly because of this global competitiveness and then social media, there is an increasing cost to unethical behavior. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, if I can just very accurate. Yeah, I think the question was about the cost of ethics, and I think there's a lot of empirical literature on the subject at the moment. People have been doing research studies on this for a while, and if you look at the total body of it, it says very clearly that the companies which do better on ESG to perform financially better as well in the long term. So I think in individual cases, comparing company X or company Y from our memory in a certain context over a certain time, we may conclude that it was costly, but if you look at the aggregate body of evidence, it clearly shows that is not the case.
In other words, if companies are faced with an ethical dilemma around, emissions and we talked about human rights, they have to pay more to their labor in order to factor out human rights violations or child labor. You have to pay more to adults and train adults and so on, and then you have to invest in expensive emissions controls and effluent controls. So that's the kind of cost that you could bear, and you pass that cost on to customers. So that's why it talks about competitiveness. So you're saying in the long run, we have to do that in the long run, because you have to be bringing your transactional costs down in the long run.
I just had a question, if I may. That is this body of evidence globally or for Pakistan?
No, this is global across many different countries. Actually, Pakistan would be limited because there is
exactly
high quality academic research coming out of Pakistan. But there's research from across the countries, and to be honest, Pakistan isn't an exception. If you go to other developing countries, I've been to different conferences in different parts of the world, and people are debating very similar issues. So we're not unique. We're on planet Earth, and we shouldn't use this exceptionalism. I think which is kind of used quite often, unfortunately. That whatever works elsewhere won't work here.
So the next question, let me move on and get some of the other people. So somebody, it's anonymous, but somebody said, should we have a chief ethics officer? So it's another CEO. You can't probably have normally what they have is a chief sustainability officer, a CSO, which I suppose if you have another governance level, then don't you have another function within an organization, and you have to resource that, you have to give them budget, you have to give them some freedom to exercise their responsibilities. How would you like another chief sustainability officer on your board, Ahmad?
So we already at JAS have a chief ethics and compliance officer.
So you have a chief ethics and compliance,
yeah. And there are no, as various other colleagues of mine at the C-suite struggle for their budgets. In this particular one, there is no budget.
There's no budget?
There is no budget, as in there is no limit to the budget.
Oh, there's no limit.
Let me qualify that. So the main thing is to really educate, inform, encourage the speak up, which we, or some other people call it whistleblowing. I find that slightly negative, but we encourage people to speak up whenever they see that there is a breach of our code of conduct. So we pride ourselves in trying to become a world-class organization. A world-class organization by default has to be an ethical organization. So we put a lot of emphasis. There's a lot of emphasis on high-level commitment, which comes from either role modeling, and while I appreciate that new companies want to get away from titles, I think people who are in a position of power have a huge responsibility to role model what they think is the right thing to do. And that permeates throughout the organizations. But you're asking your question succinctly, yes, there is a chief ethics and compliance officer.
And how much airtime do they get at the board meetings?
They comment on everything that goes on in the organization. So I can talk about my own organization. We spend 3 hours with the executive leadership team. My chief ethics officer, she's sitting over there, and they comment about everything, just like anybody else.
So let's move on with the questions. If anybody else wants to answer that as well.
Sorry, I would like to add our experiences in Deloitte. We do have this chief, we have different levels. We have chief ethics officer in every city. Then we have a chief ethics officer at the country level, and then we have the ethics committee. If there is something, so there are different levels. And one more thing which has recently, say for the last 1 year, it has been developed in our entity that Deloitte has outsourced the ethical, the whistleblowing reporting system and mechanism and follow to a third party, rather just to ensure that the whistleblower is protected and whatever the case is or whatever the complaints are, they're being properly followed at the proper level and they're being addressed. So that's one thing. It's already been there in place in various organizations and entities.
Okay, so there are questions that some of them are just repeating. Is business a gentleman's game? Anybody wants to answer that? How to link emotional intelligence and ethics, both personally and professionally as well? Can we just solely rely upon our personal moral compass, or do we need training to decide, on decisions professionally?
And I think we need a number of things. And what works for, in my mind, a company of less than 200 people doesn't. You got to do things differently beyond that, because still, as I said, 200 people, the CEO knows everyone. So I think then the role of the leader is very important. Not like we heard earlier, code of ethics or personal behavior, but people should understand that if they undertake unethical activities, there will be consequences. There will be reward and penalty associated with it. That key message has to go, and then it has to be implemented and monitored to build the culture. And then as the company grows, what you start getting more of is standard operating procedures, and you're doing things in a more structured way, and hopefully that sense in a great company that all employees feel they are being treated fairly, and customers are delighted that maintained as a grow and scale.
Great, thank you. I've read out all the Slido questions. I'll take one, maybe two questions from the audience if there is anybody, otherwise I'll wrap it up here. So your question, your hand went up first.
A very brief comment in relation to this discussion, and if in discussions around ethics, in generally what we have seen is that we consider that shareholders and stakeholders are poles apart. I think this is something which we are doing more harm to the whole concept of ethics, right? So what we need to understand in general, that if you are treating your employees fairly, if you are paying your vendors on time, if you are being transparent with your customers, it is for the benefit of shareholders. That's it. No need to differentiate between shareholders and stakeholders, and consider that if we do something for stakeholders, it would not be for the benefit of shareholders. So shareholders' wealth maximization is not bad, but it would come through, taking care of all the interests around you.
Great, thank you for that comment. Any others? Masud?
Assalamualaikum. We have been talking about ethics for a long time, but if we compare the way we are talking about with ethics and practice, it's very disappointing. I'm giving you an example. Let's consider corporate sector, limited liabilities companies. They are hardly doing well in terms of ethics profession. But in Pakistan, as Pakistan is a developing country, most of people are living under the poverty line, so they prefer to buy goods and services from small businesses, and honestly say that small businesses even don't know the meaning of ethics. And they are providing goods and services which is either not good for health or which are low quality. So what I want to ask, that instead to create ethical behavior in small businesses, or priority is to create ethical behavior in people who already know.
So I think you partly answered that through the supply chain question, because a lot of SMEs are part of supply chains, and therefore, they're learning from whoever's on the top of the supply chain. So very quickly, Yusuf.
I kind of want to bring in technology into the picture. So now even supply chains, even in this country, are being blockchain enabled. So all people across the supply chain, even with smart contracts, they know where the goods are at what time, and their quality is being checked and monitored. The temperature, for perishable goods is being checked. I'm just saying it's not obviously widespread in Pakistan yet, but this is the future, right? And I just wanted to give one example of how technology can be used to address this problem of substandard goods. So we incubated a startup in incubator in Lahore, and a lady from a very humble background. She started a company, followed a vision, which was to put daily essentials and things like shabbat meals or cooking for people like hawkers and day laborers who could never afford it. And now they pay 50 rupees a day or 500 rupees a week. And anybody could do that, but she's at sales of 1.5 crore rupees and profits of 31 lakh rupees. And a US investor gave her a term sheet of $930,000 to expand it. It was a commercially viable model. So when you do this, and there are other people who are selling substandard goods, or they are not fulfilling their commitments, they are going to wither away, because you're bringing in a scale of good. It's like McDonald's, right? Except that it is for delivering these goods to people's homes. So these are some ways in which technology can solve a lot of these problems, because whenever you digitize, it becomes more transparent. McKinsey has a report out which says that if through digital financial inclusion, this has been dated, but they said by 2025, the government revenue can increase by $7 billion a year through the stoppage of linkages, right? And so imagine that rural women, rural men coming on board, being able to get a loan, being able to get insurance, being able to access wheat or rice, and looking at the prices and seeing where is the cheapest and what is the best for me. And because you have artificial intelligence in the background, those decisions for credit or insurance are made in a minute, right? They're made online in a minute. So I think it is important to bring in this question of how is technology impacting ethics by giving so much transparency.
But there's a whole ethical question around increasing AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, the Internet of everything.
Yes.
In the sense that the ethical questions for leaders nowadays is around privacy and data.
Yes.
If we go down that route of using technology increasingly, and to the benefit commercially, benefit and economically, but isn't the ethics around that also a bit challenging?
Okay. So first of all, let's understand basic fact that in 1500 global GNP was $50 billion in constant $2,000 in 1500. Today it is $86 trillion. It has increased 1,600 times. World population has increased maybe, I'm going to say about 16 times. So per capita has increased 100 times. Why? Because of what Klaus Schwab, the chairman of World Economic Forum, calls the four industrial revolutions: the steam engine, electricity, IT, and not for either. So a lot of people have been lifted out of poverty and subsistence existence. Lifespans have increased, health has increased. So let's keep that bigger picture in mind. But now let's come to your point. So certainly AI poses a threat. AI can pose a threat as severe as a nuclear bomb. Okay? Because you have automated robots firing at speed. AI is a threat. AI poses a possible threat to employment. For example, Elon Musk says we only need 1 billion people. Elon Musk of SpaceX and Tesla. That we need only 1 billion people to do work in the world. But the World Bank of McKinsey says no, we are going to have new jobs. AI is also becoming intrusive. For example, Facebook and Google sometimes know you better than yourself. They look at your message history and they send you ads, and you are kind of instigated to buy. So all these privacy questions are threats. We have to deal with them. That how do we preserve the privacy of human beings? And so there is potential to harm. Absolutely, there is. Just like a nuclear bomb.
A lot of you, when you sign up for an app, you go to the end and tick agree on the terms and conditions. And normally, when you tick on that, your face and all your photographs, you're giving permission for them to use it. And big companies are allowing that. You really want to come in.
No, I want to go back to the question that was actually asked. I think we went on for a tangent. The question was, do small and medium enterprises, do they understand what ethics is? Is there awareness there or not? And what can we do to help increase the awareness? There are two things. The first thing is governmental regulations and standard codes can come into play because they are also answerable for protecting and making sure that the goods and services that are being sold are of a minimum standard. Right? That's number one. The second thing which I always tell within my own organization is that while ethics is at times subjective, people will have their own interpretation of what is right and wrong. Certain basic things as human beings we do know. So I cannot imagine that somebody who is operating in a low-cost environment by mixing dangerous elements into a food product they don't need any regulation for them to know that they're doing something wrong. So I think at a basic level, yes, they would know that they're doing something wrong. Maybe at a more sophisticated level, they may not think that employing a 14-year-old kid is wrong. Because in that context, I agree with you that I should think maybe, yes, let's do it. But some basic things, I think almost everybody knows. And no company, no organization in the world can give you so much regulations, policies, and procedures that will allow you to carry on with your daily job. So at some stage, you have to rely on your common sense. How you enter the organization, there's not going to be a policy on whether you open the door with your right hand or your left hand, or there's going to be no policy which says do not spit on other people. But you know that that's not the right thing to do.
Yes, so
people do know a little bit about it.
So our prisons are full of people who broke the law. Yeah? And if you ask them, did they know they were doing the wrong thing? 100% will say, yes, we knew we were doing the wrong thing, but willing to take the risk. So what you're saying there is that if there is wrong going on, and you're harming people at an SME level, there has to be monitoring and punishment. Yeah? Because that's the only way you get people to change behavior is to monitor their behavior, catch them, and then punish them. Yeah? I think we're all agreed on that. There's no other ways. Well,
so the most important thing for any business to sustain is the reputation that it carries. And the risk that we're talking about is a reputational risk, which often boards tend to ignore. Now, the greater your business engages public interest, the greater the reputational risk. So, I can well understand why Aamir's company has a chief ethics officer, because they engage millions and millions of people in this country. So, the role of the ethics officer becomes necessary where you are increasing your reputational risk. And it cannot be satisfied just merely through compliance. So when you get to an organization where if you were to go and honest paid employee, whatever the employee is doing, anywhere in the country where the business engaged, do you know the purpose of this company? And that employee gives you the same answer as the chief executive or the chairman of the board would, then you will understand the need for ethics, the value of reputation, and perhaps the need to have a structured approach to it.
Great. Thank you all very much. A big round of applause for the panel, please.